Well, during my time in Jersey, I kept saying, you know, I like that Texas music. I like the Texas music. So I told my wife one day, pack up. We're going to Texas. Well, I got to Texas. And I met this gentleman, Manuel Rangel, who heard of my record that I had a hit with. And he helped me get into the Texas business. Rangel helped me because he bought 3,000 units of the record Tonto. The guy who I made a deal with in California paid me for 2,000. So if one distributor bought 3,000, how many units were sold by the other distributors? Rangel then said, look, produce and I'll distribute your records. There we go. We're in Texas. We're with the best distributor in the business. And I started recording. I then met this gentleman, Manny Guerra, who I consider to be the best of the best in recording. I already had 3 or 4 more artists from Mexico I was working with. I'll bypass that. I'll jump straight to Tejano. That's what we're interested in. This gentleman called me from the Valley. There was a good friend with Chuy Santos. He said, well, would you record for me, produce for me this group I think is good? I said, Chuy, of course. Send it to me, let me listen to it, and I'll do my best. Well, in comes Jimmy and Joe Mazz. We record the first album. Does nothing. I told my friend, don't press too many records. Now I'm going to back up a little bit. At 3 o'clock in the morning, Jimmy Gonzalez, the arranger, the whole thing, he was the whole thing, calls me up and says, Bob, I got a name for the group. I said, what's the name? He said, Mazz. I said, oh, no, I don't like that. I said, M-A-S-S? No, he says, M-A-Z-Z. I love it. So now we got Mazz. First album sits in that poor guy's house. 3,000 records. They're all in his living room. He didn't sell a record. We start the second album. Now he's got 6,000 records in his living room. Doesn't sell a record. I said, I didn't know what to do. Chewy, what do you want me to do? He said, would you buy all my records and the contract for $3,000? Now, I happen to have loved this group. I said, definitely I will. The third album, we record a song called Lauda Ya No Vive Aquí, written by Luis Silva. Boom, it explodes. Absolutely explodes. Now we got a big record. So, at that point, I had to actually leave San Antonio because I wanted to take the kids for a vacation. But we had enough business going on where I didn't have to hang around. Jimmy and Joe are tough to handle. I mean, there's no question about it. This is a tough crew, a very tough crew, but they're very talented. But I thought my secretary, Betsy, could handle it. So off I go to California, and I'm driving through El Paso. And I hear this song, La Leona, on the radio. And I told Maria, I said, listen, I want to know who sang that. Listen to it carefully. Listen. Let's catch it. La Mafia. I said, boy, I like that. Picked up the phone. I said, called up Luis. Luis, I want you to find the Mafia. I want you to sign them. Luis calls me back. He says, they're already under contract. I said, oh, come on, Luis. Really? He said, yes. Well, I go to California, we were in California, and all of a sudden, Manny Guerra calls me and says, Bob, that group you liked, the Mafia, they're right in front of me here in the studio. You want them? They'll sign with you. Sign them. Right now, sign them. Can I do the album? I said, definitely. Do the album. He sends me the album about 3 weeks later. I called him up. I said, Manny, this kid doesn't sing too good. He's not that good of a singer. Manny tells me, he said, Bob, it's so commercial, don't worry about it. Now, Oscar's going to call me when he sees this and say, what do you mean I don't sing? It's okay, Oscar, you know as well as I do you're not a great singer. The album comes out, and I went to see him play. They were opening for Mazz on a football field. Now here comes this nice bunch of kids walking down, like a majorette, and they're walking down the field. And this is Mafia. I said, oh my God, what am I into? They get up on the stage, and Oscar just puts on a performance that was wonderful. And I said, you know what? Mazz has got a problem. This group is good. They dress beautifully. Well, Joe gets out of a limo. He's got his T-shirt on. Walks up on the stage, and the place goes crazy. He's still the king. They had 5 limos waiting out there so Joe could get to a limo, and no one would know which limo he went off. Joe was the king. All right, now I got these 2 groups. Jimmy comes up to me one day from Mazz. He says, Bob, we got 2 bulldogs in one cage. We got a problem. I said, Jimmy, I'm not changing. Jimmy, okay. Now we go, and I'm in Houston, and I hear this guy singing Una Rosa para Una Rosa, Ram Herrera. I said, I have to have him. I said, what a singer. Well, I ended up getting him. Went through hell to get him, but I got him. Now I had 3 good artists. Then David Lee Goddessa came in. Now this is where a story comes to life. He had this young kid called Emilio Nevada singing for him. Emilio was just a great kid. But he says to me, Emilio says to me one day, I'd like to be on my own. I said, well, that's up to you. I'll sign you. I really believe in you. But I think you should wait until we get something. Well, every Monday, we met for lunch for almost a year. And one day, I was walking into my office, and there is this humble, very humble man sitting at the corner. Betsy's telling him to get out, and he wouldn't get out. He's just sitting there like this in the corner. He said, I want to see Mr. Grever. I said, Betsy, what's going on? I want to see him. So he comes into my office. I said, what can I do for you? He said, I want to sing you my song. Sure, I'd love to hear it. He sings, Que sensaciones me dan. Well, I said, well, you got anything more to it? He said, no. I said, I love it. Finish it. Because it just rang a bell. That's the song for Emilio. Well, he finishes the song. I go get Emilio. I said, get out of the David Lee Goddess contract. Get out of it. I got the song. We can make it. I really got a good song. We record the song. I put it on the radio in Houston. It becomes a huge success. I had put Emilio with a manager who could help him putting together a group, getting instruments, he had the money to do it. Well, he hears the song on the radio and he says, that's the worst song I've ever heard. I've never heard anything. Get it off the radio. I said, I thought it was pretty good. He said, it's terrible. Oh, okay. I called up the radio station. Can you take it off? The manager thinks it's terrible. He said, Bob, this is the biggest hit we've had in years. We're not taking it off. Wow. It really hits big. Big. Emilio is launched. In fact, he becomes my #1 artist. Now there's a knock at my door. I'm saying, who is this? I go to my front door and there's this little girl, 12 years old. Selena. I open the door and in comes this little girl, 12 years old. And she comes in and she says, can I sing for you? She was with her father and her sister, her mother. And they come into the house. I said, yeah, come on into the house. And my dad was there. Now, my dad was a big music man, huge. And she gets up and dances and sings and does it all. My father took one look at her. He says, sign her. Sign her. Don't let her walk out the door. I said, Dad, she's 12 years old. I can't take this girl on a promotional trip. I can't do it. What am I going to do with her? He said, sign her. Worry about that later. All right. When my father said, do something, I did it. I signed her. Well, what happens after that is I couldn't really deal with her the way an artist should be dealt with. But yet we made records, and yet we did promotion that we could do. And she was starting to climb the ladder like this. Well, it reached a point where I couldn't handle her. So I called up my friend from Capitol Records. I said, I can't handle this girl. She is going to explode. Take her. I'll give her to you because she deserves to be a superstar. So now Selena was in my company and out of my company. But she always said, when she see me, she'd say, how's Papa? Always, always, always. Well, she has a habit of bringing a tear to my eyes. Because Selena now was in and out of my company. It's one of the biggest tragic things that happened at Tejano music. I then moved on with Emilio. Now, Emilio was just destined to be a superstar. And he was.